Hello and welcome to Pensions in 10 with me, David Brooks, and my colleague Chris Rice. This week, predictably, we take a look at the Mansion House Accord. We also take an update on the Pensions Dashboard Programme, and we take a deep dive-ish into the Financial Lives survey.
So Dave, let's start with the big news from last week and this meeting of the all-important pension providers and Chancellor all together, talking about how they're going to invest loads of money in UK productive finance. Sounds fantastic, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe, probably, could be. I think it could be any of those things. It might not be great as well. I don't know. We'll wait and see. But I suppose the Mansion House Accord is sort of Mansion House Compact times 2. So bigger, more of a commitment, more providers, and quite soon as well. So the Mansion House Accord, 17 providers, government all agreeing that they will allocate up to 10% of their default funds, so DC default funds, into productive finance by 2030. And of that 10%, half of it, so 5% of the total assets, invested in UK productive finance. And I've got a copy of the Accord here, and you can actually read it for yourselves. Don't have to read the press release. You can read the Accord. It's about one side of A4. And I'm still slightly, not confused, I suppose. I don't know. I'm just slightly unsure of why we had to do an Accord. Because when you read the Accord, it's a nice commitment I suppose, from both sides, from the government who want the money and the pension providers who have the money to actually do something. But there's lots of ifs in here. There's lots of ifs when you're reading through what needs to happen. So the government is committing to build these investment opportunities that are of good enough quality for people to have the confidence in and put their pension funds money in it. So there's an if they're going to build that, and there's an if that the value for members framework that's coming through the pension schemes bill is created and works, and then if the charge cap can be adjusted in such a way, because productive assets and these are liquids do require higher charges because there's a lot more work for the fund manager to do, and if you want these to be done properly, it's one of those things. You do need to actually pay some money to do it properly. You need people sitting on boards. You need people engaging with these opportunities and making sure they're working and making sure they're going to provide the return. So there is a higher charge than you would normally have from going into a tracker fund. And all these ifs are then also predicated on the pension funds then going, okay, we'll then put some money into it. So if these investment opportunities were always going to be so good anyway, why do we need an Accord to agree to do it? And I think that the spectre in the room was that thing around mandating pension funds to do this, to say we will just write some regulations, as has been done in countries across Europe and in South America. We will just write some regulations and say you have to invest in this stuff. I don't think anybody really wants that. I don't think the government would want to have to do that because there's some risks involved with them forcing things to happen. And if things don't work out well for the members, then that won't look good. And obviously, providers want to have some flexibility in some circumstances. If things are legislated for, if you go below certain boundaries, then there could be financial penalties or legal penalties for going outside that. So mandation is probably something we don't want. The one thing that I think wasn't included in the Accord that should have been front and centre is why this is good for pension savers, why this is good for people who have their retirement incomes, which is reliant on these default funds. Most people are in these. You get auto enrolled in. These are the sort of pensions we're talking about. You get auto enrolled into a pension scheme, and then they get to decide. The provider decides how those assets are invested in through that default fund. So many of people, listeners, your outcomes will be determined by how well these funds do. I suppose you could say there's only 10%, so it's not all of it, but still, it is still members at the end of the day who are taking the risk, and it's important to understand that they're going to get something out of this in the end. And I think there should have been a little bit more from the government, a little bit more from the providers, giving confidence that savers will be protected and savers will get good outcomes from this. Okay, Chris, so this is a little bit of a tongue twister, but I'm going to give it a go. So you have been looking at the Pension Dashboard Programme's Progress Update Report. I think I made it. Yes.
That was excellent. I'm not going to repeat it back to you. I think I'll stop there while we're looking professional. This came out late last week, and I think looking at how these reports have progressed over the last few that have been released, really positive that progress is being made well, you'd like to think that there has been if they're releasing a progress update report. But given how the project started with the delays, it's nice to see things really cooking on gas now. So what's happened in this last report is they've confirmed, I think perhaps when we were on a session a month or so ago, that there was the first connection of Legal in General, and there are now four providers that have connected so far at the date of the report, with another five. I mean, actually, I can't get my numbers right. Another five, close behind, out of the 20 that were initially part of the program. So you'd expect within the next couple of months that 50% of those to have been connected, which cover an awful number of members and schemes. So that the real behind-the-scenes infrastructure is going really well there. They're looking to start involving Money Helper as the first consumer-facing dashboard, and I think the good thing about that is they're starting to put out some pictures of what it will look like for members, and it will really start to bring it alive as we start talking to trustees about it, and what members might actually see will help them understand why a little bit of work needs to be done. And some member testing then through Money Helper commencing in the autumn, which means then they'll be starting to think about members logging on next year, which should suggest things are going to time and really good. And then following the Money Helper, then the FCA and TP are working with some commercial providers to offer some dashboard solutions there as well. So looking good, all going well. And the other encouraging thing is all the agencies involved are saying that they're being quite pragmatic with how they're looking at organisations moving towards dashboards. So not going with too much of a stick, recognising it's a massive IT infrastructure problem. Please keep to the dates, but we're going to be a little bit reasonable if there's a few wrinkles. So sensible all round.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's going to get busy. These progress reports are going to get beefier, I think, as they go through the year, as more and more schemes and providers connect. You start getting towards the end of the year, some of the occupational schemes and trust-based schemes coming on board, and some of our clients actually connecting. I think connecting this month as well. So it's all hands to the pump. And over the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot of work making sure everything's working behind the scenes. So, but yeah, really good news.
Okay, Dave, I think what we'll do is change this to pensions in 10 hours. If we're going to go through the FCA Financial Lives 2024 survey, which covered 18 reports. All right, let's forget the other 17 and look at the pensions one with 161 slides, all containing data on it.
Okay.
I could have.
Are you going to share the slides? We can go through them one by one, yeah?
Yeah, let's do that. I picked out 2 items of data because otherwise I could just go nuts, as you can imagine, as an actuary. And I felt that I expected to be really, really negative, but perhaps it's my sunny disposition and the sun shining outside that made me think, actually, that's not that bad. I noticed that 17 members, 70% of adults, as the survey extrapolated, don't have any private pension provision. And then the report itself said that these are people that are not in the workforce because of illness or unemployment or haven't started yet, being young. That didn't sound terrible. The slightly more concerning number was 33% in the survey said that their private pension provision was a DC fund of less than 10,000. But even that I can see the sunny side of, on the basis that it was a much higher percentage at younger members that would have just started contributing and not in the workforce as long. And it was a lower figure than the last financial survey. So perhaps I'm just scratching around trying to find some green shoots of something, because the news is always bad in terms of the amount of pension provision that people are making. But I didn't think it was quite as bad as it could have been.
I was muted. I think it's interesting, and there's a self-reported study, so I think there's a slight sprinkle of skepticism about some of the numbers, perhaps. So hopefully people are underestimating their pension values if they weren't sure, and there's a big box of don't knows on the some of those values. And I think, as always with these things, when you're looking at size of people's pension pots, we don't know what else. Looking at DC only, we don't know what else they've got. They might have more DB. We don't know what they might need when they actually get to retirement. So the income replacement that's going to give, we don't know either. So, but like you, I'm trying to be positive. So I think it's generally the right direction, and perhaps the direction you'd expect as more and more people save in DC pensions, as opposed to other private sector DB pension savings. I want to have a little moan though about one stat that was in the main report, wasn't in the pension only bit, but it was around sort of people's satisfaction with their providers and confidence in their various financial products. And there was a big table full of savings accounts and mortgage brokers and these kind of things. And DC pension, which I'm taking personally as sort of the pensions industry, came at the bottom with the lowest level of confidence, which I didn't really like. And also, there was another chart which I didn't quite understand. There was a chart around sort of recent experience. Did you have a cause to complain to anybody about your financial products? And investments were right at the top. Motor finance was up there, all these sorts of things. And DC pensions was at the bottom, as being people aren't complaining about DC pensions. So on one hand, people don't like pensions. On the other hand, they don't seem to moan about them very much, actually, to their providers. So either it's too hard to complain and people don't bother, maybe, possibly, or actually it's more of a reputation thing. And DC pensions are a victim of the past, of things that have gone wrong. We've talked about this before. You blurted with profits out at me, and I had to go, yeah, okay, fine. I had to accept. Yeah, there are sort of skeletons in our closet of things that have gone wrong in the 80s. High charges, people ripping, people getting ripped off with pensions. But pensions does seem to be a more highly regulated space than ever before. Better run, better outcomes for members than ever before. I just don't know if we're getting the kudos for all the good work we're doing, and perhaps we need to do a bit more to try to get the good word out there about how good a pension is as a way to save for your later life, as a tax efficient savings wrapper, as it often gets described as. That's what it is, and it's actually quite good at doing that. And I think people need to understand that a bit more. But I don't know how to make them do that. I'll have a think. Okay, that's it for this week. Thank you, Chris, for joining me to talk through those topics. Don't forget to like and share on LinkedIn if you're looking at us there. Or if you'd like to get these into your inbox, then you can subscribe via our website. And you don't have to remember to look up on LinkedIn to see them. So we'll see you next week on the next episode of Pensions in Tech.